Okay, thank you, Raphael, and hello to everyone again. So we will be talking in this session about the exciting topic of monetizing the power of the network. And obviously, most of this is related to 5G, with full recognition that the world is not yet all 5G. So a lot of the things I'll be talking about are actually for the heterogeneous operators, which are still operating potentially 2G, 3G, 4G networks. But there's a lot happening with 5G. So let's charge in. So, obviously every G that's happened has given us something new. There's no question about that. It's been an exciting period. I've personally worked in it all of my life, my professional life anyway. And I saw the transition, from the 2G to 3G, where really it was about paying what you use for. And, we all remember voice and SMS. Well, actually, because we still use them, nothing's changed. And then the bundles and the kind of megabyte and gigabyte plans came along with 3G. We saw the mobile internet come out, the iPhone. By the way, cloud also came about during that era, but that's another story. Mobile applications started to appear. We saw the open operating systems and all these exciting things. And then 4G came along and actually not much changed, if you think about it. It was kind of more of what was already there, and more. And actually, this is the whole point. It became all you can eat. And this kind of set of evolutions is something which we can't change anymore because it's already happened. But we can think consciously about 5G and think, well, actually, since we're making that transition now, what is the opportunity, right? Is it just even more of what we ate already before, or is there something different? And that's really the question that we should be asking ourselves. We should be making conscious decisions based on the kind of simplification of complexity within that, and then understand how we can drive that into the markets available to us in our countries, across borders, and even globally. And that's really what we're going to be talking about in this session. So really, driving into 5G brings us multi-dimensional opportunities to monetize. And I won't go through the list, that's not the purpose of this, but clearly the kind of aspects and the number of dimensions of monetization are of an order of magnitude different to what we had before. And that's, a lot of that is actually built into the 5G technology itself. But I would argue a lot of it is very much connected to the world around 5G. And what's one big thing that's changed between our last kind of switch between 3G and 4G, and I mentioned it previously, is cloud. And obviously cloud has shown the world, shown the consumers of connectivity and of IT services a different way to consume and a different way to integrate the power of technology into their businesses, into their experiences, into their everyday lives. Okay, so really that kind of learning is something we're going to talk about quite a lot in this session. So how can we look at this hybrid monetization? How can we take what we call the currencies of 5G, of capacity, of density, of playing around with slices, which is effectively segmentation of network resources, building ecosystems, partnerships. What about APIs? A lot of news about APIs now, and these all become effectively new chargeable elements which allow us to drive monetization in a transformational way, not just an evolutionary way. And that's a very important point. So we really want to get away from the previous model of the telco industry. I think most people on this session listening to me today, and thank you for spending your time listening to me, by the way, I much appreciate it. We're in the telco industry in one way or another, whether we're vendors or operators. We really want to, in many senses, avoid the 4G scenario of investing all the money as an industry, and rightly so. We're adopting new technologies. We adopted virtualization. We adopted general purpose compute, new type of radio, FDMA, all sorts of really fancy stuff. But let's face it, in a sense, others got the big revenue, and as a telco industry, I think we failed to capitalize potentially as much as we should have on the investments that we made, and building this concept of having embedded network services which we are able to link into the business models of the future is something that we really need to focus to properly engage with the OTT players and really properly engage with the ecosystem. And we will come back to that point. Now, we're not the only ones saying this. I always like to just connect in a little bit of external perspective, as has many a wise person said. A good bit of perspective is never something to be ignored. All right, so we always think we have the best ideas ourselves, but let's just double check that. And the TM Forum, obviously, long-time players in an open system, and I love their phrase. That partnering repeatedly and at the right margins, and the right margins means creating win-win-win models. Or, if there are 4 players, that'll be a win-win-win-win models, and so on and so forth. It shouldn't be this hard, right? And that's true because it's been proven outside the mobile industry. I'll come back in 2 or 3 slides time to a parallel, a business parallel, which we should all pay a lot of attention to. So I'll come back to this point. STL Partners as well. This is actually just after this event that we've joined together at now, is just after Mobile World Congress that was in Barcelona. I attended it, and I was so happy to see people again and see 60,000 people collected around a lot of things. And actually, I think STL make a great point. Their observation was, it's not so much about connectivity anymore, it's about connecting technologies. And technologies means that you're not just connecting the technologies themselves, but you're connecting the players who have adopted the technologies. So it's as much a techie issue as an ecosystem business issue. It's everything is now interconnected between the technology and the business world. And it's up to the players that can make all the stuff work to simplify and effectively adopt this kind of flexible, programmable environment. Those will be the winners, and those will be the people that will have proven and have built a success model out of 5G, as opposed to the people who simply deploy 5G. There's a big difference between those two. We also saw the launch of Camera, a Telco Global API Alliance, of which Amdocs is a member. And this is, the point is not to go into detail on any of these, but I think all of these are great proof points of effectively what we can term the platformization of 5G, and certainly the kind of drive into an ecosystem model. Now, this looks like a complex slide, and I'm sorry if it does, but I think my point here is to try to get across that all the way on the left, where we have our 4G networks, our 5G networks being built, the ability to start to expose the capabilities within them, and actually project what the networks are capable of into multiple go-to-market channels. So yes, at the top, as we can see, we have the ability to project directly B2C with enhanced consumer experiences, leveraging the assets and the capabilities. Remember the first slide I showed you with the multiple currencies available in 5G, which were not available before, enhance the B2C experiences. There's nothing wrong with that. That's where since 1G, we've been providing B2C. That's the lifeblood of the mobile industry, but it's by no means everything. And I think the mobile industry needs to turn around now and say, what about this ecosystem model? What does that mean in practice? What's a pragmatic way to start to evolve and to effectively diversify and expand my revenues? Because it's not just about expansion of revenues, it's about diversification. One will generate the other. The diversification will create the expansion. And that's where really driving B2B and B2B2X, B2B2B, there are lots of different types of these, allowing your networks to become a platform which is integrated directly into enterprises, exposing APIs, developing marketplaces directly to enterprises. Yes, that's a valid route. But actually, the further down this diagram we go, the further you as an operator are able to scale and effectively become a part of other people's value chains, allowing partners to integrate what you provide, your programmable network, your capabilities, your OSS, your exposure, your even some of your BSS services, and of course your customers and the attributes and the capabilities of your networks, make that part of what they do. And they're the ones then who serve effectively a complex, integrated, simplified solution into the enterprise world with you as part of them. Maybe your brand becomes invisible, But does that really matter if you're making money and if you're not just a bit pipe? No, it doesn't matter. And that's one of the really cool things here is as we get towards the bottom, empowering cloud providers, effectively being a composite part of the massively scalable, massively well-proven cloud business model. And if you look towards the right of this diagram, what you'll find is that whichever way you've gone, you've sold something into the enterprise community, you've sold something into the business-to-business world, you've expanded beyond B2C, and it doesn't matter which way you get there. Whichever way you went, you are part of someone else's solution, and you're not just selling connectivity anymore. You are effectively interconnecting technologies, just like we were told in that STL observation out of MWC. I agree with them, and that's where the new money is. Okay, so this kind of set of ecosystem models is very important for us to jump into, and that's really where we've in Amdocs have identified this, and we actually call this something called the value plane. And what we've done is we've effectively taken the notion of the value plane to expose the business network and IT infrastructure and allow that to be driven into this whole kind of 5G play, which brings us in a life cycle all the way from definition to engagement, monetization, and analytics, and allowing that to be driven so that your network infrastructure is exposed through the value plane and actually becomes a consumable, monetizable platform which is integrated to the outside world. And we see that the 5G standalone inflection point is absolutely one of the best moments, if you like, in terms of a business justification, of a technology justification. This is really the inflection point to really look at what we call the value plane and say, what can I do with that which will transform my business future, and not just continue the 4G kind of very delicate business model, which is neither profitable nor loss-making, but it kind of sits somewhere in between. That's not exciting, right? That's not what will make the future of your business burn and be hot and be exciting for your investors. No, what will be exciting will be transformation. And that's really where this kind of inflection point is a great time to really look at this closely. I promised you a comparison earlier on, and I think it is worth comparing, and we've written some papers on this. You're welcome to pop along to our website and have a look. But the comparison between the cloud gameplay, if we go back 13, 14 years to the beginning of cloud, I mean, even 15, 16 years ago, there was no cloud. Just think about that, right? Just think how the cloud players that we well know have completely transformed the way that enterprises consume many, many services, not just compute, not just storage, but you go on to, I think it's AWS onto your console now, you can be consuming any one or more of, I think, upwards of 250 different technology services and integrating them into your business. I mean, that's just incredible, right? And you can connect your business to what they provide, to all these technologies using automated programmable APIs. Wow. This is not science fiction. This is not imaginary. This is what's really happening. And I don't think I need to prove how successful that's been. So I think what I'm saying today is that we should be driving the 5G gameplay. Well, let's learn from the masters. What's wrong with effectively looking and consciously planning to mimic, to copy, to imitate exactly what has been so successful in the cloud business model. And this is really what the value plane is driving at, is providing you, the operator, with the ability to effectively capitalize on your platform and effectively integrate that to the enormous set of ecosystems and commercial models that sit around you. So the 5G value plane is really, it's our assembly of components, and I'll talk about what exactly is in there in a second, which allow us to build a flexible and agile model, which can allow integration and effectively velocity across the board, so that your network can act and react to market opportunities with no delay. That your time to market is is now. It's not tomorrow, it's not next week, it's not in 6 months' time. It's always now. You're even ready before. And that's the attitude and the technical capability which you need, and I think the industry need as operators, in order to capitalize on the multi-dimensional monetization that we talked about right at the beginning of this presentation, and in order to enter into the ecosystems that we looked at a couple of slides ago. So the 5G value plane is effectively an assembly of what we consider are the 4 3GPP network functions. So policy, which we consider as the brain of the network, is what allows the network to be conscious of how to do things to achieve a goal. So, if we have a business goal, we need to deliver a certain quality or a certain characteristic of the network in order to achieve a certain service for a business success. Well, it's the brain that makes that happen. In CCS, charging, this is really the treasury saying, well, how all those dimensions that we're talking about to monetize it go way beyond voice, way beyond bits and bytes. Well, how can we charge for any of these aspects so that eventually, as you're driving 5G into vertical opportunities, into all sorts of sectors, why shouldn't you be charging, for example, for per square meter for a I don't know, manufacturing or logistics customer? Why would you charge per megabyte? What counts for them is how many square meters of factory or warehouse they've enabled with 5G. Wow, that's a completely different metric that you'd be charging for. But it's just one tiny example of the future is unknown, and I think there's this flexibility in order to create the network in any form that it needs to be, to measure anything and charge on that, and use things like the NWDAF to refine and build knowledge which you can use yourselves, but also that you can then link into the business proposition which you pump into your ecosystem or deliver directly to your customers, so that they are able to integrate your services and the quality of experience directly into their own propositions and their own experiences. And lastly, but not at all least, network exposure, which has become an extremely hot topic. I mentioned camera earlier on. This is one of the references to it. The ability to technically integrate in runtime with your customers, with ecosystems, with partners, with cloud players, and allow them to use your network as if it was theirs. And this is a very, very powerful point. And that value plane integration, together with a full 5G BSS play from Amdocs, allowing this kind of duality of commercially and technically integrating into the outside world. There's no point simply commercially integrating with a partner or an ecosystem if you can't technically deliver what you're commercially selling. And vice versa, if you technically integrate, if you expose APIs, if you expose programmability, if you expose AI and ML resources to your customers, well, you should commercialize that. That's the whole point, right? Is building a win-win business model and allowing these technologies, these capabilities to be really driven into your customers and to measure and to share the value. Okay, so for the technology buffs in the audience, this kind of puts all of those components in context with the rest of the 3GPP network. You can see the functional control plane at the bottom, state authentication user plane. At the bottom, on the bottom segment on this slide, we have a functional operational 5G network. But in and of itself, if you deploy all of those, you're not making a single dollar, nothing. It is everything above there, that value plane, the interconnectivity with the outside world, the coupling with digital BSS and OSS, that's really the plane, if you like. That's a collection of IPR, of intelligence, of a vendor like Amdocs who only focuses on that part. We don't have, in many senses, we don't have distraction or conflict of interest where most of our revenue is coming from the radio or from something else. No, our success in the domain of building that value plane and building value on top of the network is fully driven into all of our investments and focus in that area. So I'll finish just briefly on an example. This is an example like any other. This happens to be a hospital. So it's one network, many use cases. And this is really the whole point of 5G is, when you build it as a platform and you integrate it into these many use cases within a given environment, this happens to be a healthcare environment. That's great, because what happens is is you're partitioning value, is you're driving the extreme and the basic stuff of 5G into very difficult and very simple use cases, same customer, and really tailoring the kind of fit between the technology, connecting technology together and building fantastic business models which are successful on both sides. And this expands out, it goes into all sorts of industry sectors. So every single possible industry sector that you can think of is already one that is probably consuming cloud and using it as a platform. Well, why shouldn't they be doing that with 5G using the value plane? So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the event, and I'll hand back now. All the best.